Wolfman is a new monster horror movie that is coming out this weekend. It is directed by Leigh Wannell. He's the guy that gave us Invisible Man a few years ago. I guess Universal said, fuck that shared monster universe that we're trying to do. Just take a concept and go with it. And so we have a Wolfman movie. The film also stars Julia Gardner, and it stars, I want to say his name is Chad. Maybe it's Chris. Is it Chad Scott? Is that his name? I feel really bad that I can't remember his name because I did look it up right before this video started, but Chad, we're just gonna call him C because I'm pretty sure his name starts with a C. Either way, the premise of this movie is about this family, a wife, a husband, and their daughter. They're going on this trip to this secluded farm, this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and then on their way to this cabin, they are attacked by some mysterious monster, some strange animal-like creature. They escape inside the house, but then what follows is a number of tense hours while the animal is circling around the perimeter. The husband and father starts exhibiting a lot of strange behavior, and all of a sudden, it becomes clear that he has contracted some kind of thing that is also causing him to change into something unspeakably evil, and thus we have Wolfman. I was definitely very curious. It feels like it's been a minute since we've had a really good Wolfman movie. I didn't prepare anything like to see this movie or like to do this review, but I did see some werewolf-based movies. Watched Van Helsing a few weeks ago, which has some pretty good werewolves in that movie, even though I know some people shit on Van Helsing. I like it. I think it's a fun movie. Wolfman in 2025 definitely has some things going for it, even if it's not as corny or as cheesy as Van Helsing. I really love the way this film was shot. I think it has some really great cinematography that adds to the atmosphere of the whole movie. The cinematography in this movie is very dark. It's very haunting. You've got a lot of muted blues and shadowy hues thrown around in this thing. Visually, there's some interesting things they do to show you what somebody is seeing, what they're experiencing as they're transforming, as they're changing into this werewolf-like monster. I also think the movie is enhanced by some pretty excellent sound design. The sound design in this movie is very immersive. It makes you feel like you can hear almost anything, but it definitely adds to the immersion of the suspense that you're supposed to feel. This movie does pull off a few suspenseful sequences really well. I also think the performances in the movie are really good. These are really good actors. I like the relationship between the father and the daughter especially. Shout out to C, Chad or Chris. He does a really great job in this movie, also depicting somebody changing into this thing. Standout performance for me is definitely Julia Gardner though. Julia Gardner, I've always loved her as an actress. She does a lot of great acting without saying anything. That was one of her biggest strengths on The Ozark. If you haven't checked out The Ozark, you should definitely check that out. That's like one of the greatest shows that Netflix has ever made, and Julia Gardner plays a character named Ruth on that show. One of the greatest characters that I have ever rooted for in my entire life. I feel like this is a more realistic modern day take on the Wolfman, which you kind of expected when you see what Leigh Wannell did to the Invisible Man. It's a movie that feels very emotionally grounded. It's a movie that's not necessarily just about the werewolf. It's about this family, and it's about this emotional current that's running through them as they're all dealing with different things. I also think it's pretty interesting to show the perspective of the werewolf. That's something that we haven't had in a lot of the modern takes on werewolf movies. And so I like the fact that we get to go inside the mind of somebody changing and we get to see what that would look like, what that would sound like. I do think that is part and parcel part of the problem. Wow, I'd say that 3 times fast. Part and parcel part. Oh, well, it's actually not that difficult. I do feel like that is part and parcel part of the issue with this movie though, and why the pacing for this movie is a big issue. Because most of the movie is not really about committing to being a werewolf movie. Most of the movie is about the transformation into a werewolf, and that is really the hook of the entire movie, and that's a pretty interesting hook for a while. But at a certain point, it does get really old, it does get really tiring and repetitive, and after a while, you're just kind of watching this guy slowly turn into a werewolf. And there's like an actual threat in the movie, but the movie's not about that actual threat, it's about this transformation. And unfortunately, I feel like it makes the movie dilute its own tension. I feel like at no point in the movie do you really feel that scared for the wife and the daughter. You feel like things are gonna be okay. You never feel like the father is in a position where he's actually going to harm or hurt them, and so it just feels like you're waiting for something real to happen in the movie. If you had focused on the actual threat of the movie, I feel like there could have been some tension and you still could have kept things emotionally grounded the way that you wanted them to. But instead, in a movie like this, you're just kind of sitting around and you're watching this guy slowly change, and that gets kind of boring after a while, I'm not gonna lie. As far as issues between the husband and the wife, they kind of hint at them and introduce them in the movie, but they don't actually go anywhere with it. It's a small thing, but I do feel like it could have added to the overall emotional connectivity of the entire film, and instead it just feels like they introduced something and then they just kind of forgot about it the longer the movie went on. There's actually some pretty good meta things they have to say about marriage in here, about how maybe sometimes in a marriage people change, and after a while it's hard to recognize somebody, it's hard to like understand them and communicate when somebody changes. Also, I have a critique that's not really a critique of the movie. It feels more like something like a fan of werewolves would be critiquing, but I gotta say it here in the review. The werewolf design is absolute dog shit. No, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is. It's a bad design. It's awful. I thought that going into the movie, but I hoped the movie would make me forget about it. But no, when you're watching a movie about a guy slowly and surely transforming into a werewolf, and then the actual werewolf doesn't feel like a werewolf. I know the movie is called Wolfman, but otherwise I wouldn't know what he's actually transforming into. He kind of looks like Smeagol with cancer, or maybe Smeagol on crack with a little bit of steroids thrown in. It doesn't feel like Wolfman. It feels more like People Change, the movie, although it's more like People Change and get slightly hairier. I don't know, I just feel like the movie is much more interested in a family drama, which isn't as well executed. And then the movie is not really interested in being a werewolf movie either, so it kind of feels like after a while, I didn't have anything to hook me to the film. Wolfman was just okay. I was a little disappointed. I'm gonna leave this one in the Fortress of Solitude. Are you interested in seeing that this weekend? Let me know. Also, what's your favorite monster movie of all time? Put that in the comment section below. Stay tuned for more videos. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.